Hi, everyone. My name is Max Potter. I am a financial analyst at a large bank in New York City. So if there's any excess noise, that's the reason. But in the spare time that I have, I can't stop contemplating the big existential, what Dostoevsky called the eternal questions. That is partially what we're going to be talking about today. We are going over a guide to exploring your inner world. Today, we explore 10 perspectives from ancient stories and psychedelics to psychoanalysis and modern neuroscience. Let's begin with Freud, maybe the most famous psychoanalyst of the 20th century. And he really understood the mind as consisting of three different units: the id, which are the base instincts, the superego, which is your conscience or morality, and your ego, which is the mediator. And these aspects of the self, of the mind, all interact and are also in conflict. This leads to psychological phenomena such as defense mechanisms and dreams that reveal unconscious desires. So, right off the bat, we see with Freud the mind being broken up into different pieces or characters or parts. We're going to see that continue in our next example with Carl Jung. Going a level below, I think most people today kind of acknowledge Jung as being a more significant and more thoughtful thinker compared to Freud. Jung came up with a number of ideas, one of which, and often most famously talked about, is this idea of archetypes. We have listed on the screen the shadow, the persona, the anima, and animus, which are the male and female aspects of the psyche. And then we have the self listed, which is, as I say, the ultimate archetype. It's the totality and eventual union of all of these different elements. And Jung believed that the integration and reconciliation of all of these different parts of your mind that you often hold and bring out at different moments was the key purpose of life. It's your lifelong journey to become whole, to unify your mind and become a whole person. It's kind of a beautiful idea. Active imagination is one of the techniques Jung practiced in famously the Red Book, which is this absolutely unbelievable book into the depths of Carl Jung's mind, as a way to understand the psyche. Active imagination allows your unconscious, subconscious mind to basically do work on its own without the pressure of your conscious mind to conform to the realities we often set for it. We see our mind able to create these beautiful dream-like image-rich worlds with symbols in just the most beautiful way through active imagination. Artists, especially in the surrealist movement, often use this, Dali being a great example. Salvador Dali's art is so reminiscent, so expressive of exactly this type of almost dream-like state where you have this warping, shifting, non-boundaried imagery. We see Salvador Dali employ this technique where he would sleep with the key in his hand. When he fell asleep, the key would drop, clang to the floor. He would wake up, and that's when he would start making his art, particularly and purposefully to capture the mind in this in-between state where you're not so bound by your conscious mind. So we've gone over being awake, analyzing both the two major psychoanalysts. Then we went into active imagination, kind of this in-between world. And now we're fully in dreams. Now we're asleep. Now we're pretty much at the will of the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. Purposeful dreaming is something that I've actually never experienced and I don't really understand. So maybe that's a topic for another video. But dreams are the full expression of the unconscious. Some people think it is just the, remnants of your day being processed or fear responses, but it's likely something much more than that because we see archetypal patterns, symbols repeat, dreams are common across people. It's also interesting to think how the different cultures throughout history have dealt with dreams, whether it's the people in Polynesia thinking that we have access to spirits through our dreams, or in the biblical tradition, so often in the Bible, we see these people, the characters, talk to God through their dreams. And we still don't know a lot about dreams, just to be very clear about that. So far, we've talked about the internal world a lot, the individualized way to explore your inner world through psychoanalysis, through active imagination, through dreams. But what about the using the collective knowledge of society and humanity to explore ourselves? Myths are thousands of years old sometimes, and there are common elements of life, of problems that we face, of stages in a man or woman's journey through becoming a person reflected in these stories. One example of this is the hero's journey that we have here. I read a beautiful Psychology Today article about it that shows the similarity across religious stories and across myths throughout the world that are really helpful in understanding yourself, because you see that people have been struggling with the same kind of problems you struggle with for thousands and thousands of years. And probably even earlier that, as Jordan Peterson so often says, in oral traditions that we probably just don't have access to. Some of these ideas, the problems that we face are thousands, tens of thousands, and probably even millions of years old. Being afraid of the dark, for instance, is probably one of the oldest ideas we have, because when we're asleep, what comes to get you? Everything comes to get you. That's where nightmares come from. There are some pretty interesting things to explore in these old myths. Journaling is the key to processing your information, the key to processing the events of your life, whether good or bad. I personally know the most about this topic. I have journaled over 1,500 times in the last 6 years. One of my most proud accomplishments. If I ever lost my journals, I would have a massive chunk of my heart ripped out. That would be a devastating, devastating experience, and I really hope that doesn't ever happen. Journaling, processing the events of your life, planning for the future, reflecting, especially to a blank page that is, unbiased, that is not critical, that isn't judging you, is the most freeing experience in the world, and is absolutely a requisite to becoming psychologically stable, in my opinion. Isolation is a very interesting idea. We're so often bombarded, especially with phones today, from external stimuli. These creep their way into our minds, and we spend more time thinking about really things that don't matter as compared to the most key elements of our minds that you may be interested in exploring, hence why you're watching this video up until this point. If you are watching up to this point, subscribe. My name is Max. Thanks so much for being here, and I hope you're enjoying so far. This idea of isolation is really important. I have a cabin in the woods that I get to go to about once a year with my friends, and I always take a long walk by myself because it is just the most freeing, unburdened way to contemplate. Thus spoke Zarathustra, which is one of Nietzsche's, if not the most enigmatic, strange books. And at the very beginning, this character Zarathustra goes up into the mountains to be on his own for a decade, for 10 years. And then, after that period of reflection, after that period of isolation, he's developed enough to go share his ideas with the people. And that's when he comes down. This idea of coming down from the mountain or coming down from isolation is also really important. But you need isolation to be able to really explore yourself in a way that isn't totally hampered by the thoughts of society, the buzzing of poisonous flies, as Nietzsche called them, called society. Psychedelics, what a difficult topic to talk about. They're currently illegal in most places, so you can't say much about them without almost incriminating yourself. It's very bizarre because there is a mountain of scientific evidence, particularly for MDMA being used to treat PTSD and psilocybin being able to address a number of mental and physical health effects, including addiction, mental health, depression, end of life processing. There's a range of ways that psychedelics can be used to explore your mind, and it is absolutely freeing to people. Psychedelics have been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years as a way to access the inner world, access, the gods that, people, past cultures believed to have existed. Now we have evidence to show what psychedelics, particularly psilocybin, actually do. One example of this being repressing the default mode network, which is associated with self-referential thought and identity. You break down the bounds of your individual, and you're able to experience a oneness that is talked about in pretty much all of the ancient religions, particularly in the East. This can enable a reevaluation of life's priorities and a shift towards values that are more aligned with the greater good, leading to a greater sense of purpose and meaning. Oh, I have the title wrong for the slide. It says psychedelics. It should be physical pursuit, physicality, physical exercise. We have two really good examples of why this is important, why physical struggle, purposeful physical struggle is important for exploring your inner world. In Sun and Steel, a pretty cool book, really the idea of it is so good that, without discipline of the body, you can't discipline your mind. You need a disciplined mind to be able to to explore yourself. That's what I got out of this book. David Goggins also has this idea of being able to change your mind through physical exercise. So far, we've only talked about exploring your mind, but actually being able to change your mind is somewhat of a different story. But there's so many ideas from David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, that I recommend as a way to explore yourself. David Goggins thinks, that only in the end of a physical pursuit, of really difficult, run or workout, can you know yourself. It's similar to Andrew Tate talking about fighting. All of man's truth comes out in a fight. There's no hiding. There's no philosophizing. It breaks down any romanticization you can have about your thoughts and gives you the truth. The fundamental sciences are absolutely a way to explore your inner world, to understand yourself. I mean, imagine being a person in 2025 not using the full extent of scientific knowledge that we have, even if some of it may or may not be wrong, to explore the self. Think about how jealous Aristotle, Socrates, even Rene Descartes would be of this knowledge that you have at your fingertips, literally free if you have a computer, if you're watching this video. To understand neuroscience is to understand yourself, is to understand your mind. It's absolutely critical to have a deep understanding of the way that your body is composed, the feedback loops, the dopamine minergic cycles that allow you to process, that cause you to want things. We're going to talk about Buddhism next week. Dopamine cycle is absolutely critical to understanding, very likely, the process of greed and needing and desire and craving that is at the very core of the fourth most popular religion in the world. We're going to move on to Joscha Bach, which I put in the fundamental sciences category, although I don't know how common of a view his is. I'm just going to read this because I think it's pretty succinct. Joscha Bach understands the self not as a fixed identity or a singular real person, but as a simulacrum. What is a simulacrum? Simulacrum, I can barely even say it. It's a high level of representational model of an agent that is constantly running inside the brain. It's a simulation of what your person believes is the necessary conjugation of a self to be a practical person, to interact in the social world. The self isn't real, but we have created the self and able to be effective and as able to survive and live in the world. It's a story the brain tells about itself. This perspective aligns with Buddhist concepts of the self as an illusion, but it's grounded in mostly computer science, is what Joscha Bach says that he studied for the last 25 years. The ending of this, okay, how do we conclude the examination of the inner world that we've just gone through, if we have at all? The other week, I was getting a face scan, a CT scan at a hospital in Oxford, because I had just been punched in the face after being mugged. And I saw a 3D representation of myself, of my skull. And it was the freakiest thing that I've ever seen. I was stripped of all the things that I typically associate with myself, including all the bad things, me losing my hair, or my sense of fashion, or my skin color. All of those things were stripped away. And I saw, part of what I really am, which is, a skeleton. It was an absolutely freaky experience. Stripping yourself down of these outer elements, of the fluff, is critical to getting to the core of who you are or what you are. That was a jarring experience, and I don't know how to allow people to get that, but I highly recommend it if you can. Are humans more alike than we think we are? We always see the differences in each other. We're bombing each other. We see differences in skin color. We see differences in height, intelligence, looks, all of those things. But I looked it up. 99.9% of our DNA, of our genetic code, is the same. Who knows what percentage of our personality is encoded in genetics? Likely not all of it, because we have a 0.1% difference. Is that able to create the vast diversity that we see throughout the world? Obviously there are great differences in each individual. That's why you approach exploring the inner world through active imagination, through dreams, through psychoanalysis of yourself, through journaling. But then we also see great similarities, such as myths and such as the fundamental sciences, that is really, really important. It's the different sides of the same coin to understanding yourself. This hard problem of consciousness, everyone that's watching this has probably heard about that. Is the feeling, is the intangible aspect of being alive contained in your DNA somewhere? If we had a full mapping, a full scientific understanding of how we work, would that be able to be explained? Or is it, like Yoshibak said, a simulation? And is the simulation not encoded? Where does that simulation exist? These are the frontiers of, for me, understanding my inner world. And I have to approach myself from all of these angles because one way just will not cut it. I have to see myself from all these different angles, from all of these perspectives to even hope to understand myself. And it's likely only going to be a very Picasso-esque, disjointed, amalgamated view of who I am. But I think that's better than just having the straight, camera mirror shot of yourself. You want to see yourself from all angles. So hopefully that's, been something that I could do through this video, something that's helpful to people, offering a variety of ways to understand yourself, to explore your inner world. And I think it is, the key purpose of your life to understand yourself. It's just so beautiful. Sitting in meditation, sometimes we haven't even talked about meditation. You get these glimpses into yourself. Certain moments of isolation I've had, it's almost like the veil of outer reality of these boxes that I put myself into have just completely vanished. And I'm left with a feeling that you have to experience to understand. I'm going to leave it at that. I implore you to, set off on this journey to understand yourself. It's completely necessary, I think, for a deeply meaningful life. Teme no se means know thyself. That sign hung above my bed for the last, 6 years? Know thyself. Memento mori is keep death in mind. Having an understanding of death, forces you to believe in the purpose of life, because it's going to be over soon. So why not enjoy it? Why not find meaning out of it? Why not learn and explore what you are, who you are, where you are? Thank you so much for being here. This has been Max Depth. I love you all so fucking much. And hopefully I'll see you real soon. I'm working on hopefully a great video on Buddhism. I'm learning a lot. And I hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing here. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one.